Hey everyone, this is Andrew Embler, CTO of Concrete5, and I'm going to show you how you can add style customization to your Concrete5 theme. Concrete5 has long provided some form of style customization to theme developers, and by that I mean the ability to make certain CSS properties of your theme editable through the CMS by site editors and people who don't know CSS or who don't want to go into the file system. This functionality has been overhauled and improved substantially in 5.7. For example, this is how you customize the elemental theme in Concrete 5.7. As you can see, as this loads, there are tons and tons of properties that are customizable. You can do it from the front end. It changes out tons of different stuff, including background images, color, type, spacing. All these different things are customizable. All these different fonts and things like that. All of these different settings are kind of easily grouped. It's very powerful. Under the hood, it's much improved and easier to actually do, even though it is more complicated. It's very powerful. We're very excited about this functionality, and I'm going to show you how you can bring that to your own themes. So, one thing before you dive headfirst into making a Concrete 5 theme customizable, you're going to want to understand less. Less is a CSS preprocessor, which adds certain nice things to CSS if you're not familiar with it. Things like variables, nested selectors, things like that. If some of that stuff doesn't make sense to you, or you're not totally sure about what less brings to the table, you should definitely pause this, come back to it, familiarize yourself with less a little bit. You'll be glad you did. It's a very nice way to work with CSS. Now we can continue. Concrete 5's theme customizer uses less extensively as the engine for this customization, which is quite a bit different than our previous version of the theme customizer. Second note, you're going to want to turn off front-end caching and override caching from the cache and speed settings page in the dashboard when you're doing any of this stuff. So theme CSS cache, compress less output, CSS and JavaScript cache, overrides cache, very important, turn off. Usually a good idea to do this anytime you're working with Concrete 5 and you're active in the file system. These caches, store data so it doesn't have to be looked up or built all the time. But when you're actively developing, you need that to be built all the time. So this theme should look familiar to you if you've seen any of my previous screencasts. It's just a theme I downloaded from the internet and I have concretized and added some functionality to. It's called Urbanic. We're going to be making certain aspects of this theme customizable today. The first thing you should do is you should determine which variables, which attributes of your style sheets and the UI that you want to actually make customizable. It's best to just pick one or two till you understand what you're doing. You can always add more later. Taking a look at my theme, I think the first thing I'm going to make customizable is going to be this orange that you see everywhere. This orange is kind of used in the blog. It's used as the button background. It's used in the nav. It's used down there, although those might be images. But yeah, this orange is used in a whole bunch of places. Wouldn't it be cool if we could, through the UI, swap that orange out with any other color? So let's do that. So we've decided which one we're going to start with. And so now we're going to get started. First thing we need to do is we need to convert the style sheet being used for this for the UI into a less file from a CSS file. So we're going to go into our theme. Here is our theme, should be very familiar. We'll open the CSS directory. Bootstrap is the Bootstrap framework, so we're not going to touch that. Thankfully, we don't have to. We're going to convert templatemo_style.css into a less file. And we're just going to do that by, well, we're going to try if Mac OS will let us. We're going to convert this into a less file by changing its file extension. So now we've got ourselves a less file. Next, we are going to create a variables file. This file is a file that's going to store the default values for all the items we want to have in our customizer. So right now it's just going to have one variable in it, the variable that corresponds to that orange color. So this happens from within the CSS directory. We're going to make presets, and then we're going to copy this file just to have an easy starting point. We're going to call it defaults.less. The name of this file and its location are important. We're going to get to presets later on, but the way that concrete5's customizer works is even if you don't have multiple presets, your default variables are always stored at presets/defaults.less. So it's good to make this, even if you don't plan, you have to make this here, even if you don't plan on using presets. So we're going to open this less file, and we're going to delete all the stuff that I pasted in there. And we are going to make one CSS value powered by a variable. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to choose a good variable name. Let's open up both these things together. We're going to choose a good variable name. Now, the orange that is here is hex of FF7600, and you can see it is found in multiple spots in my file. So what we're going to do, we're going to choose a name for this. This name is going to be something we have to reuse and remember and make sense of within all of our files. So it makes sense to choose a good variable name. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the first instance of this. We're going to copy it. We're going to cut it here. And we're going to add a less variable in here. And again, this should be pretty familiar to anyone who has worked with less. Right now, we're just doing standard less stuff. There's nothing special about this. We're going to name this primary action color. That's because it is a color variable, and it's sort of the primary, action color, whether it's a blog date or a nav. You could also just call it primary color. You could call it whatever you want. The only thing you have to keep in mind is this variable must end with -color. There are multiple different variable types present in concrete5's style customizer, and their types and the special parameters available to those types dictate how they have to be suffixed. So that's confusing, and it'll make more sense later. But for now, just make sure that any color variable that you're dealing with here ends with -color. So we have primary action color here. And now we need to go throughout our less file and find all instances of this color and swap it out with our variable. That's pretty standard less. Even if you weren't working with concrete5, this would be handy to be able to change this in one spot. Now we're going to need to import the variable files, the variables file. Otherwise, when we render this, it's going to give us an error. So let's add that here. So we've got that in there. And finally, we have to change how we include this file in our theme, because we've obviously renamed it from CSS to less. And even if we were doing more than that, we have to tweak that include slightly. So let's go back to our themes directory, and we will go into our full page template. And you'll see we've got css/template_mo_style.css. We're going to swap this out with a slightly different method. Get stylesheet, And we don't need the CSS because this automatically looks into the CSS directory. And that is all we need to do. So now the style sheet will automatically be parsed. Less will automatically be parsed into a CSS style. So let's go back to this page and we'll refresh, and hopefully everything will continue to work as it has. That's not tremendously exciting, but it's actually pretty great because it means that we're on the right track. We haven't broken anything. Stuff is being segmented out in ways that will make it customizable. So this is the first step. If you open the design panel here, you'll see that there's still no customize link down there, even though we're using less variables. That's because we haven't defined one of the other files that we absolutely need in order to make something customizable, and that is a styles.xml file for this theme. A styles.xml file lives within the CSS directory of a theme, and it's responsible for defining the layout of that style customizer panel. It breaks styles up into style groups, defines their names, types, and variables, and without it, you're not going to get any customizable styles. So let's copy a file in there so that we can actually have something work. Now we have an empty styles.xml file. I don't need. Oh my God. So this is going to start to make some sense. Styles.xml is a pretty easy file to read. First we define the outer node, then let's create a style set. Each customizable style has to exist within a set. And finally, let's create a style record for the primary action color that we just created. Name can be anything you want. Variable has to match the variable name we defined in the defaults less file minus the special suffix that this type adds. This is going to make more sense when we have multiple types. So now, if we go back into design, we see we have a customize link. And as we come back in here, we can see that we have our style set up here, full page, and we have primary action color, and it's already pre-filled to the value of the variable. And if I, go in here and change this to red, voila, every place I'm using that less variable is automatically changed to red. And if I'm so inclined, I can save this and I could be done. If that's the only thing I wanted to change, that's all I have to do, and it's done. Really easy. Now, obviously, this is, your mind's probably racing at this point, like, what more can I do? This is great. That's going to be so helpful. Are there any more things I can use, I can make customizable? And yes, there are. There are four different style types in the style customizer. There's color, which we've already seen, type, spacing, and images. Type is by far the most complex. Spacing and images we'll also show examples of. So let's use some more style rules to make certain other items within our theme customizable. Here's the things I want to make customizable to show off the rest of the style types. I want to make this 100 pixel gap that we see everywhere. I want to make that customizable because not everyone's going to want that much spacing. That is a size variable. I said spacing before, but it's actually size. I want to change the body font and its color. That is an instance of the type customizer type. So not to get too complicated, but type in this context means like typography. I want to change the background of this team section here. So right now I don't think there is actually a background color, but I want to change the background color and the image because not everyone wants this image. It might be nice if someone could upload a different image or upload a transparent image and just use a background color. So let's add support for these new variable types into styles.xml and we'll reorganize it a little bit. And in order to do, in order to do that, I'm actually going to not have a styles.xml. I'm going to do it from scratch. This won't take me very long. So here we're adding another style here called primary spacing, and we're going to name it primary dash spacing, and we change the type to size. Then let's add a new set. We're going to call this body, and within body we are going to name this body. And we're going to call the variable body, and we're going to call the type of type. This is going to let us customize the entire typography for basically the entire body area of the site. And finally, we have the team area. A couple different items here. Background color. We'll call this team background with the type of color. And then team background of the type image, and we'll call this one background image. So we've added this to styles.xml. If we reload the panel, we'll see this, and these will all just work, but since we haven't defined variables for any of these, nothing's going to be loaded into them. So next, let's add some new styles to less. First, we'll go into defaults.less, and we'll comment this because it's going to be handy. The size style type provides one variable, and it's just the name of the variable that you've defined already with the suffix of -size. So since we've created primary spacing, we'll copy that, and we'll call this primary spacing size, and we'll give it 100px. And then let's look through our style sheet for all instances of 100px. Primary spacing size. And that's all we need to do for that. Next, we are going to need to add in some styles for the body type. This is a little more complicated. The body type style type actually provides up to 9 variables. So whatever your variable, in this case body, with the suffix type font family, type font weight, type text decoration, text transform, type font style, type color, type font size, type letter spacing, and type line height. You don't have to use all of those. You don't have to define all of those, but you could. So the best way to understand what this is doing is to perhaps copy from one of the other examples that we're going to use. These are what we are going to make definable in our example. So what we do now is we go through our template mo style and we swap out these values with the variables. Body, type, font, family. And then body, type, font size. Body, type, weight, body type font style. Now you'll notice color is not actually defined in here, but we are going to make the color 333333. And then we'll look for 333333 everywhere. That's not a great one, since there's a lot of semantic meaning to text dark gray. And now let's switch out a few more things. We've got our body type font size, and we're going to switch that out in a number of other places because this 14 pixels is actually defined in a number of spots. So we're going to look for 14 pixels in a lot of different spots. But again, this is standard less stuff. It's just you have to be very deliberate about the about your variables. Next, we are going to what are we going to do next? Next, we're going to move on to the team section in order to actually implement the team background color and image. So let's look in the template mo section. Team. Here we go. Template mo-team. So we're going to swap this out with team background image. And we are going to add, we're going to make this background image, and we're going to add background color. I'm going to wait while my editor decides to allow us to do that. And then by default, we're going to and we'll choose a nice color here as well. Now, let's give it a try. If there are any issues, shouldn't be too difficult for us to figure it out. Let's refresh. It's a good start. We can see that images are still loading correctly. Looks like we've still got our Open Sans font face. And let's check out the design. Looks like we've got spacing. We can take that down to 50 pixels. And you can see that it actually is taking it down here and down here, which is fantastic. We've still got our primary action color up there. We've got a body that we can change out. Interestingly, that didn't seem to take. Perhaps these are governed by different styles. Oh, there we go. Now it's working. Perfect. And we've got a background image here. So it's really just that easy. There's going to be some trial and error involved potentially. Once you actually start working with multiple types, you're going to want to be pretty careful because it does introduce a fair number of variables. You don't have to define all of them, but you'll want to keep your variables files pretty well. You'll want to keep your variables files pretty well commented and sort of clean. So let's talk a little bit about providing some style presets with your customized theme. Concrete5 Style Customizer allows theme developers to group their theme's less variable combinations into theme presets. So that means providing, good variable starting points with colors and fonts that look nice together. And since you can do images, you can really make a lot of nice different combinations and themes that look completely different. And they serve as starting points that less savvy themers or less savvy editors can use to get a nice site starting quickly and then tweak just the things that they want to change. And we're actually already a little ahead of the game here because presets defaults LESS is actually our first preset. So I was saying that earlier. All your presets are going to be different less variable combinations, and they live in this presets folder. So although we don't see any presets present in our design tab yet, that's just because there's only the defaults. But the moment we add something in here, you'll be able to choose between the defaults and your second preset. So the first thing that you're going to want to do when you are working with presets, or you want to turn this into one of many presets, is you're going to want to add some metadata to the top of this file. There are 3 concrete5 specific less variables that you're going to want to use. The first is preset name. This is what the name of the preset's going to be when it's shown in the design panel. Preset icon is a special less function that we actually defined called concrete icon. And here you just choose 3 colors that appear predominantly in your preset version of the theme. So I'm choosing white because the background is white, and I'm choosing orange because that's the primary action color, and I'm choosing dark gray because that is the text. And whatever you put here is actually going to dynamically create that little preset icon that we see in the design view. Then we have presets fonts file, and this will make some sense in a second. We've got since these presets use things like open sans, we have to tell concrete5 where to get that font from, and in this case we're getting it from Google Fonts. We don't necessarily want to load up a million fonts in our template mode style.less if we're only going to use a small subset of them for a particular preset. So what we do is we include this here as a variable, and then we make sure that that fonts directory actually exists, and we will go grab a pre-built file, and this is what that includes. It's just an import from Google Fonts. This should be familiar to anyone who has worked with Google Fonts before. And then we make sure to import the value of this variable in our template style.less. So I'm going to import that here. And you can see this little fancy guy is a way to import the value of a variable as an expression. So you can't just say import. You can't just do import and then the value, because you need it to be inside of a quote sign. So that is what this does here. And then as we switch out presets, different font files will be imported. Just kind of a standard convention there. Now let's create a second preset, because we can't really test this without that. So to do that, all we do is we create another file that exactly matches the variables of defaults.less in our presets. And I happen to have one in here. I have forestgreen.less, and I also have it in my fonts. And let's open this up and compare them. So you'll see my defaults.less is here. My forest green is here. Mostly the same. Has a different preset name, has a different icon, colors, and has different fonts. Has a different background image, different colors. It uses a different font which is looking between the two of these, I realized that I have made a slight typo. It's actually concrete icon, not concrete5 icon. You'll know that very quickly when your styles pane does not load. And unfortunately, you may not get the best error feedback if you misspell something here or miss a semicolon. You'll definitely get some feedback, but it might be further up the chain. So let's just give this a real quick look. Make sure that you've got the leading numeric signs on all of your colors. Concrete icon, not concrete5 icon. No missing quotes, anything like that. Standard stuff. Let's give this a try. We'll reload the page. Seems like we're off to a good start. And yay, it worked. So now you can see we've got this handy preset section up here. And if I click expand, we've got our dynamically created icons. If I click forest green, my presets automatically swap out. I have different font throughout. I have a spacer ping instead of a graphic, and I've got my standard darker green background back there. I've got Oswald loaded in instead of Open Sans, and still the same pixel spacing. Anything that's the same is going to stay the same. It's really nice. So that is sort of crash course in how to set up presets. And in general, one important takeaway: anything that you can't have different variable sets in different presets, because all these presets is a different way to load data into the existing styles.xml that you've already made. So don't think that you can have different variables in there. Presets are really just a handy way to pre-fill the same stuff across all presets, but that doesn't mean you can't make them very flexible throughout. And hope to see some beautiful themes out there. I just wanted to close out this rather lengthy screencast by just underscoring some of that we've only really just scratched the surface of what is possible in the Style Customizer in 5.7. This is built with a full less parser behind it. You can get very creative, and we hope to see some really exciting stuff. And to do that, I just wanted to take you through a very quick overview of the elemental theme that's built into 5.7. This can be found in Concrete Themes. If we go into the CSS here, you'll see we've got one main.less file. This is our customized file, and we are harnessing the full flexibility of less here. Like we've got a ton of different build files, a ton of different that are included. We try and do a really good job of separating block styles that are provided by Elemental out into special includes. You'll see we're importing variables and mix-ins and stuff from the core, from Bootstrap, a special Bootstrap 3.2 build that is included with Elemental. And we've got our presets font files, which should be, old hat to you by now. And if we look into this build directory, there's just a lot of examples of using, of how, the Style Customizer and Less work really nicely together. For example, if I look at the page attribute display custom styles that are provided by the Elemental theme, you see we're using a core less function in here, which takes the body type color parameter and lightens it by 25%. So, you can make that is a fully customizable parameter that you can change the color to. In the using the design tab, and then this particular class will lighten it by 25%, whatever it happens to be. So you could make a theme where you provide one sort of customizable base color and then intelligently change colors across all of those, make 100 different variants in use. You can use the Bootstrap gradient mix-ins to create CSS gradients that are completely customizable, the start and end points. Let's see, if moving right along into some of this other stuff, if I look in the page list, Well, that's not a great example, although you could see some less mix-ins being used there. Here's a good one. If we've got a mix-in that we call make heading that creates that uses these things to print out multiple headings. It's pretty handy right there. We're using the bootstrap. The built-in bootstrap function, less function called button variant, and we are powering it with our own customizable variables. Yeah, so you can just see that there's a lot that can be done here. You can use less expressions to, right here we're computing the margin bottom based off of a bootstrap variable divided by 2. So there's just a ton of promise here, and we are very excited to see what you guys can do with it. So thanks everyone for sticking it out through this very lengthy screencast, and I can't wait to see the themes that you make.